right, here we go. Part 2. Sorry about that. I know I said 20. It was a little bit more involved than I thought. I had to go all the way across the expansive yard here at the 1%er compound. I had to go to the big house. A whole bunch of internet stuff. Things were unplugged. Things were plugged back in. Lights were blinking. Then they were off. Then they came on. And then they blinked again. And then they stayed solid, which I'm assured is a good thing. Anyway, I apologize for the delay. We do have a full show for you today. So we're just going to have to get started now, right? No more delay. Appreciate you guys. Sorry for all of you that's been hanging out. You've been here since noon. It's 12:37. But let's get going. All right, it is the High Noon Show. What do we do here? Well, we tell you everything about today. Anything that's buzzing, the headlines, the current events, the topics. We do it in a couple of different stages. We open up with trying to give you a firm understanding of what this day has meant throughout history. We cover some of the historical events. We talk about the birthdays. I wax poetic about some of the losses. That's right. Births, deaths, and history. That's what we do first. Then when I feel like, you know what? I think we've got this down. I think we know what to expect from December 6th. Then we go into all of the things that are actually happening today. All of the events that will in one way, shape, or form shape the way someone in the future looks back on this particular December 6th. So let's get started. It is the 6th day of December for year of our Lord 2022. December 6th is the 340th day of the year. There are 25 days remaining until Christmas. On this day in 1790, okay, so on this day, January 6, 1790, the United States Congress moved from New York to Philadelphia. I believe there would be one more move in their future. New York was the capital. Philadelphia was the capital. And then they went, hey, we got this swampland down there that nobody wants. And that's kind of how Washington, D.C. became a thing. On this day in 1865, Georgia ratifies the 13th Amendment to the Constitution. That's pretty good. Pretty good. Like with Georgia, you think that's the no slavery one. 1865, like, well, maybe Georgia did it in like the 80s, like they never got, like they said they would do it in 1865 after the Civil War. They were like, yeah, we'll do it. And then they just never got around to it. And then just because of political, nonsense, it just kind of sat somewhere for 100 years. And then around 1986, somebody went, hey, let's make slavery illegal. Didn't another state just do that like this year? Didn't Mississippi No, you know what? I think it was Mississippi just added it to their state constitution. I don't know, whatever. I think most states have it already in there, but anyway. On this day, 1865, Georgia ratifies the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution. On this day in 1884, the Washington Monument in Washington, D.C. is completed. That's, the Washington Monument looks very modern. And it's built a long time ago. They wonder how they did that. What was that? That couldn't have been the tallest thing built to that stage, right? One of the tallest. I bet that was one of the tallest things. Washington Monument's big. Washington Monument is tall by 2022 standards. So by 1884 standards, it was pretty impressive. On this day in 1904, Teddy Roosevelt articulated his corollary, a little addendum, a little bit of a modern interpretation of the Monroe Doctrine. That's right, Teddy. This is when Teddy started saber rattling about Central America and Latin American countries. And what did he say? Teddy Roosevelt on this day said that the U.S. would intervene in the Western Hemisphere should Latin American governments prove incapable or unstoppable. Now, that does fly in the face of the Monroe Doctrine that said, we're going to mind our own business. Actually, it doesn't. It's, as they state, it's a corollary. It just sort of, gets more specific. Okay, so the Monroe Doctrine says we ain't getting involved in France versus England, right? We ain't getting involved in Germany versus Poland. The Monroe Doctrine says that the United States of America has no interest in any of the squabbles that are occurring in Europe, which a lot of people took to mean that we just mind our own business, that we're essentially isolationists, which we've never been. I mean, we've been trading with the rest of the world since our founding. We were founded as a trade center, so we can't be an isolationist. But yeah, so it was at this point that Teddy Roosevelt said, hey, you know how Monroe said we're not going to get involved over that? Yeah, okay, well, that doesn't mean over here. Like, there are still places on this side of the world that we might want to get into a fist fight or two with a couple of Central American leaders. We'll see. It was a major change in American, whether you're talking about intervention, interventionism or, military strong arming. It certainly did change the way the United States government looked at our role in the world. Theodore Roosevelt on this day. On this day in 1933, the United States federal judge John M. Woolsey rules that James Joyce's novel Ulysses is not obscene. Not obscene. What was the issue with that? I like James Joyce. Fine Irish writer, probably one of the great writers. Well, see, I mean, obviously, look, I do this show all by myself, so I'm a fan of the whole stream of consciousness thing. That's kind of how I live my life. Stream of James Joyce, of course, the greatest stream of consciousness writer of all time, I'd have to say. I mean, you give irony to O. Henry, right? And you give stream of consciousness to Joyce. Anyway, Ulysses, which is the story of a Jewish guy, Leopold Bloom, in Dublin. There's a scene or a scene in the book. What would you call that? A passage, a part in the book where like some dudes are like obviously jerking it, right? Now, but it's not like, and then they whipped, it's not like a Penthouse letter. It's not like you whipped his hog out, no, it was not. But it was done in, Joycean sort of, it was obscured. It wasn't vulgar. And so they tried to have the book banned. And it wasn't. And it's good that it wasn't because, Ulysses is considered one of the great books of all time. On this day in 1956, a violent water polo match between Hungary and the USSR takes place during the 1956 Summer Olympics in Melbourne. I don't even know that this is a thing worth noting in history, but violent water polo match. Okay, first of all, a couple of things are very confusing about water polo dudes, okay? First of all, you see a water polo dude and they're wearing those like swimming caps. Okay, you cannot look cool. Why do water polo dudes wear those stupid hats? Lose the hats. You could look so much cooler. And when you see them in the stupid hats, you're like, look at this nerd. And then water polo dude gets out of the water and you realize that he's basically like chiseled, totally yoked from treading water for the last 18 years. Water polo dudes, man, I was going to say their upper body is super incredible from all the treading and all that kind of stuff that they do, but their lower body, their legs are like, blah, blah. My point is, don't be sleeping on water polo dudes. They'll kick your ass. Water polo dudes are pretty strong. That constant water resistance, I'm telling you, they're pretty strong. Water polo. I had a friend who was a water polo dude. He was one of the strongest of all my friends. That's where this comes from. It's like, well, you know why he's so strong? Spends all the time in water. Played water polo in college for Northwestern. That's you get a free ride for that? I don't even know. Is that like if you're a water polo guy, do you get to go to Northwest? Do you get the Northwestern education for free? Like I know football and basketball and I know a bunch of those, but do all sports have scholarships? Like are there dudes on like the university chess team that's going to school for free? I don't know. Anyway, moving on. Violent water polo match. No word on who won the match or the violence that occurred afterwards. That was in 1956. In 1969, Altamont Free Concert. That was on this day that the Altamont Free Concert happened, and it was pretty bad. So, they had just come out of the summer of 1969. You had Woodstock, and it was like, yeah. And so, the Rolling Stones missed Woodstock. They didn't show up at Woodstock. They didn't think it was going to be all that cool. And then suddenly, everybody's talking about Woodstock, and the Rolling Stones feel like they've been left out of this important cultural moment. So they throw together their own kind of a West Coast Woodstock there in San Francisco at the Altamont Speedway. It was them. I think it was Hendrix. I think it was the Jefferson Airplane. I think it was a whole, probably the Grateful Dead, all the San Francisco bands led by Mick Jagger. Now, because they threw it together, because they were trying to, ride the coattails of the success and popularity of Woodstock on the East Coast, because they threw it together, they didn't really check all the boxes. And, the Stones in 1969, Keith Richards has a reputation, and that was pretty much peak Keith earning his reputation times. So I don't know how much they paid attention to all the important details, but some bad shit happened at Altamont, and a man got killed. A guy by the name of how old was he? He was a young guy, right? I think he was. Meredith Hunter. Meredith Hunter was stabbed on this day in 1969 at a free concert performed by the Rolling Stones. 18-year-old Meredith Hunter is stabbed to death by the Hells Angels security guards. Now, I love, here's what I'm a fan of. I'm a fan of publicly accepted narratives of big stories and then finding out what really happened, like after the telephone game of 20 years has been played. This is a really good example of that. This is last night, Jeff Ballard referenced Woody Allen. The Woody Allen situation is another really good example of that, where there is a public narrative that everyone just has been programmed to repeat like parrots. And then there's the actual facts, which have never really been told. But I don't want to get into that whole thing. I don't want to get into the whole thing. But Altamont is another one of these things. Altamont was the Hells Angels just murdered a man. The Hells Angels just murdered, and he was a black man, and the Hells Angels are not black, and it was probably racial. They probably just murdered this man. Now, the Hells Angels were hired by the Rolling Stones to do security at Altamont. Again, not a good move. You know, I mean, not a good move. So things went wrong and people got beat up because the Hells Angels don't work for a security company who's bonded and they have insurance and they got, that's not it. That's not how the Hells Angels, and by the way, don't forget the Hells Angels think it's really cool that they're hanging out with the Rolling Stones. So the Hells Angels are feeling themselves. The Hells Angels are trying to impress the guys that hired them. So when they start whipping someone's ass right in front of Mick Jagger on stage, they're thinking, see, this is why Mick hired us. However, it appalled the Rolling Stones to watch the Hells Angels beat the shit out of people right in front of the stage. All right, so let's get back to Meredith Hunter, the guy who was stabbed to death by the Rolling Stones, or not by the Rolling Stones, by the Hells Angels. The popular narrative is what I told you, that the Hells Angels were out of control and that they beat and stabbed a black man to death right in front of Mick Jagger. What a tragedy of rock and roll. What an unbelievably horrifying thing to have happened. How could the Rolling Stones do this? The Hells Angels are terrible. This poor, innocent, young 18-year-old Meredith Hunter was just there to enjoy a show. That's the programming. That's what we all believe. If you think about the Altamont story, that's the story we go with. That's not what happened at all. That is not what happened at all. Meredith Hunter was on all kinds of drugs. He was 18 years old. This is the black young student. I don't know if he's a student. I don't know. Black young man. You've seen him in the videos. You can see the video of this happen. He was on drugs, and he was causing a disturbance for the entire length of the concert. Everybody in the area, eyewitness accounts, all of that were saying, yeah, this guy was a real problem. If legitimate security had been there, they probably would have escorted him out long before this happened. What Meredith Hunter did, this is the police report. Meredith Hunter tried to get his way to the very front of the stage. Meredith Hunter started pushing people out of the way and moving directly to the front row of the stage so he could be right in front of Mick Jagger. Now, right in front of Mick Jagger on ground level was a phalanx of Hells Angels, who were all standing like this. Meredith Hunter shoved his way all the way up to the front. At this point, he was put in place by one of the Hells Angels, who said, hey, you're a problem, and a fight started. And he was tossed. They tossed his ass out of there and said, don't you come back. Well, guess what? Meredith Hunter came back with a gun. Meredith Hunter came back into the crowd and then pulled a gun on the Hells Angel who had just beaten the crap out of him and thrown him out. And that's when every Hells Angel there just beat the holy fuck out of this guy. He died. Now, that narrative is never talked about. It's never talked about how he was ejected by the Hells Angels and then came back with a gun. But those are the facts. So you tell me, did the Hells Angels, were they just out of control, drug addict criminals, or did they stop a mass shooting? I mean, I know it's 1969 and we didn't think of the world in those terms, but this dude came back, fought his way back to the front of the crown, this time with a gun, and pulled a gun. And he was beaten to death, pool sticks and stabbed and all that kind of stuff. But that's one of the great examples that I always cite when I talk about programming, when I say that there are all kinds of things in this world that we just think happened the way we think they happened because there's a public narrative that has been accepted and popularized. And that goes into the programming. It's out there in the ether. We don't even have to necessarily be taught about these instances. We just hear it throughout the course of our life. Casual conversation here, maybe a little headline here. Doesn't matter. It's programming. If you actually look at the facts, you find that a lot of these things, you're like, wait, that's not how it happened. Wait, I thought it happened. Altamont is a big one. I do not blame the Hells Angels for Altamont, and I do not blame the Hells Angels for the death of Meredith Hunter. He brought a gun. He was thrown out. He was acting a fool. He was thrown out. He brought a gun. He was obviously acting a fool, okay? All right. For years. Now, look, I'm no great defender of the Hells Angels. I'm just saying, in this particular case, they seem justified in beating the hell out of this guy with a gun who had already behaved violently and had been dealt with. And then he came back. This is the guy who gets thrown out of the bar, at closing time, and then goes out to his car, gets his gun, and comes back into the bar and kills 5 people. Who was this guy going to shoot? Was he going to shoot 5 Hells Angels? All right, so that's on this day in 1969, the Altamont Free Concert. There's documentaries and stuff you can see. There's also a really good book. Oh, God. It's by the guy, I want to say it's by the guy who wrote the book Bill Graham Presents, because I think I bought them together. Anyway, Altamont's a very interesting story about the truth of all that went down there. On this day in 1973, the 25th Amendment, the United States House of Representatives votes 387 to 35 to confirm Gerald Ford as Vice President of the United States. Okay. I think Ford is the first president that I remember. And I don't even really remember him. I mean, I remember what he looks like, but I wasn't. Believe it or not, I wasn't political at 4 years old or whatever I was. What was this day? On this day in 73, yeah, 3 or 4 years. I don't. On this day in 1999, A&M Records Inc. versus Napster Inc. The Recording Industry Association of America sues the peer-to-peer file sharing service Napster, alleging copyright infringement. Napster. I never got into Napster. It was a weird point in my time. You know what it was? It was about Napster. Here's what it was. It was a point in my life where I had people around me who were younger than me and far more like, producery, because they were producers. And if there was like a whole bunch of songs that I liked, I remember I would just write them down and then I would get a CD that was burnt. And they'd be like, look at me doing Napster. It's like, I'm not downloading it. It's just burned. Whatever. That's how I was. I remember Napster. All right, let's get into some birthdays. Celebrate some birthdays of people who were born unto the world on this day. Sorry, just checking out the chat room, just looking at some of the comments. Yeah, Leslie, I know that obelisks have been around since, are they Greek? Are they Egyptian? Whatever. I know what I'm talking about. Never mind. They built it in a very modern way, is my point. And yes, there were probably obelisks. I don't know if they're as tall as the Washington Monument. Have you ever seen the Washington Monument? I don't want to defend the Washington Monument. All right, so birthdays. Let's talk about some birthdays. Born on this day in 1928, Bobby Van. You guys know who Bobby Van is? Oh, Bobby Van. I used to love Bobby Van. Bobby Van was a game show host, but he was also, Bobby Van was one of these guys. When was he born? Born in 1928. So he was born in 1928, 1938, 1948, 1946, post-World War II. He was 18 years old. So this was in an era where anybody could get into show business. He's like, what can you do? I can dance. And then you dance really badly, but at least you're dancing. And like, he can dance. He's like, I can sing. And then you sing not great, but it's like, all right. And they're like, he can sing. You know what I mean? It was like anybody could become famous. And Bobby Van was one of these guys. He seems to have been famous for being famous. He's a singer and not particularly famous for being a singer. He's an actor, not particularly famous for being an actor. He's a panelist on 1950s and 60s TV shows, not particularly famous for that. Game show host in the 70s, not particularly famous for that. But when you combine them all, they become Bobby Van. Bobby Van was the host of Make Me Laugh. Do you guys remember the show Make Me Laugh? Bobby Van only hosted the show for one season. And I think it was only on for 2 seasons. Make Me Laugh was a game show from like 1978, 79, something like that. It was a game show. It was on at night, and it featured 3 stand-up comedians and contestants. And a contestant would sit in a chair, and a stand-up comedian would do his act right in the face of the person sitting there. And you got like money for every second you didn't laugh. But if you laugh, like you had to like keep a straight face in the comics, which, oh God, I used to love Make Me Laugh. First, it was the very first form of interactive TV. It was, because as an 8, 9, 10-year-old, whatever it was, I used to sit there. I used to just sit there and, okay, straight face. Okay, here we go, straight face. And you would try and not laugh. And, I used to think it was pretty easy. I used to think I could go. And then I remember my friend going, you only think it's easy because you're not there. If you were there and it was totally different. And I'm like, nah, these guys never make me laugh. I love that show. Happy birthday, Bobby Van. He's been dead for a while. Apparently, he only did 1 season of Make Me Laugh because he died during that 1 season. Didn't realize that. Born on this day in 1936, Kenneth Copeland. He's a man of God, American evangelist and author. Born on this day in 1941, Richard Speck, American mass murderer, not a man of God. Born on this day in 1941. Born on this day in 1948, Richard Speck. You know what? I do have a funny... Do you have any Richard Speck stories? Well, kinda. I was friends. Hold on, clear my throat. I was friends with a girl in high school whose father was a warden at a Stateville penitentiary, which is one of America's major crime institutions. Whatever. It's a massive. It's the big gigantic penitentiary there in. The movie Prison Break, or TV show Prison Break, was filmed there at Stateville. Or maybe it was filmed at Joliet. I don't know. They're the same thing. Joliet Correction, Stateville. So her dad, it's not the same thing. I know they're 2 different locations. Just stop it. Stop it. You realize you're arguing with yourself. No, I know. Just because I have extra thoughts that come through. Her dad was the warden of Stateville Prison, and that's where Richard Speck was. And we always thought it was really interesting because Richard Speck had been there. He got a life prison sentence. He'd been there since like 1970. This is like 1988, 1989, we're hanging out, and he's been there for a long time. And she actually, okay, so here was the most chilling thing. It's like, so did you ever meet Richard Speck? And she said, he painted my bedroom. Oh, he painted my bedroom. Apparently, the warden, this was the other weird thing. She lived on the property of Stateville. Like the warden's house is like right across the street. It's a nice house. It's a very nice house, but it's in the middle of nowhere and it's right across the street from the prison. And I remember we would say to her, do you feel like if there's a prison break, aren't you worried that you're at the warden's house right across the street? And she was like, if there's a prison break, the last place they're running to is the warden's house. I'm like, well, maybe. I mean, it was also like there was a state police substation right there at the base of her. Anyway, it was a whole thing. But yeah, apparently Richard Speck used to be like a handyman around the prison. And when they moved into the house, Richard Speck painted her bedroom. Like she wasn't there. Like she wasn't sitting on her bed while Richard Speck was painting. But isn't that weird? All right, Richard Speck, born on this day in 1941. He's dead. I think he was put to death. Let's see here. Jo Beth Williams, born on this day in 1948. Jo Beth Williams was a big American actress for about a year and a half, I think. She was big. Jo Beth Williams, she would get nominated for stuff. She was in big movies, drama movies. And then, sadly, she turned 35 and was no longer employable in Hollywood of the 80s. But Jo Beth Williams having a birthday today. Born in 1948. Tom Holtz. Tom Holtz is born today. Tom Holtz, you may not know who that is, but I can tell you, you get a lot of these cool guys like Patrick Stewart. Like he gets to walk around, like he gets to be, like Patrick Stewart. I saw him, he was wearing a t-shirt that said, yeah, I'm Picard and Dr. X or whatever, right? Because he's in those things. And then there was like a Harrison Ford. Harrison Ford has a shirt that says, "Yeah, I'm Han Solo and Indiana Jones," right? Two like super cool things. Tom Holtz has a cool one too. Tom Holtz is both Mozart from Amadeus, which is such a good movie. Tom Holtz is both Mozart and Pinto from Animal House. Mozart and Pinto. I submit to you, those are not two bad roles for your resume. Happy birthday to you, Tom Holtz. Born on this day in 1955. Stephen Wright. Oh, God, you guys. Stephen Wright. How great is Stephen Wright? What is Stephen Wright? What's a classic Stephen Wright joke? I went into a restaurant. They said they serve breakfast anytime, so I ordered eggs during the Renaissance. Come on! Come on. Very much like Mitch Hedberg. Stephen Wright and Mitch Hedberg were very similar, but make no mistake, Stephen Wright came first. Stephen Wright. You know what? Stephen Wright is a guy that I don't think. Hold on, let me see here. See if I can find some. All right. No, I can't. Stephen Wright's a guy that I got introduced to my kid. I don't think my 13-year-old has ever heard Stephen Wright. I think he'd like him. I think Stephen Wright was just quick little observations. What was another one that I used to like? I think he was the first guy, and I know a lot of people have said this one, but I think he was the first guy to point out that we park on a driveway and drive on a parkway. Those Stephen Wright. He's funny. What was another one? He said, somebody broke into my apartment the other day and they replaced all of my belongings with exact replicas. No, it's more than that one. I'm not as good as Stephen Wright. Of course I'm not as good as Stephen Wright, but Stephen Wright is awesome. Happy birthday to you, Stephen Wright, American actor, comedian, screenwriter, author. You did all the good things. Born on this day in 1956. Oh, one of my favorite, Peter Buck. Ladies and gentlemen, Peter Buck is celebrating a birthday today. Born on this day in 1956. For my money, one of the most impactful and important guitar players of my life. I love Peter. First of all, Peter Buck introduced me to the whole jingle jangly college rock sound of the late 90s, mid 90s. Peter Buck, REM. Peter Buck. Here, I'll give you an example. This is some Peter Buck here. Let me tell. What the hell is this? All right. Here, this is some quintessential Peter Buck guitar work. Let me see here. Let me find something that's really good here. No, I don't want all these newer REM stuff. I mean, it's all great, but come on. All right, here, let's try this one. There you go. Here's some quintessential Peter Buck guitar. Come on, man. All right, here, up this. Some more Peter Buck guitar. All right, here we go. Simple, jingly. It was the complete opposite of all the other kinds of guitar playing that we were hearing at the time. We were hearing this was the era of the Eddie Van Halen. This was the era of the metal guitar player, the guy playing fast. This guy just found a tone. Here's a good tone too. This guy had a tone on his guitar. Still has. Listen to this. Listen how. Here it comes. Ow! I mean, you can't say that REM doesn't have a sound, and that sound is entirely Peter Buck. Happy birthday to you, Peter Buck! Well, it's also the nasally Michael Stipe, but man. All right. Born on this day in 1967. Oh, here's a big one. Happy birthday, Judd Apatow, ladies and gentlemen. Judd Apatow draft. You better believe it. We're going to do a Judd Apatow draft on his birthday. Judd Apatow, American director, producer, and screenwriter. Born on this day in 1967. Doesn't he have a little daughter? He's got a little daughter who's not a little daughter anymore. He's got a little daughter who's now a young actress, and she's good. and she's good, right? She's like, I saw her in something and I thought, that kid was good. She's not a kid. She's a young woman. She's like in her early 20s. But I saw her in something and I remember thinking, that kid was good. Who is that kid? And I looked it up and it's like, her name is Maude Apatow. And she's Judd Apatow's daughter. Judd Apatow and who's the lady Judd Apatow's married to? Judd Apatow's married to an awesome, cool lady. They're one of they make my list of my favorite Hollywood couples. I can't think of her name. That's why. But anyway, Judd Apatow's got a cool ass daughter who's doing some stuff too. Let's see here. Judd Apatow draft. Now look, Judd Apatow's done a lot of TV. He's done a lot of movies. He's done a whole bunch of stuff. So just to make it easier, I combined TV and movies for this Judd Apatow draft. On his birthday, Leslie Mann. Thank you, Adam. Leslie Mann's so cool. Judd Apatow on his birthday with the first pick in the combined TV, film, stage, internet, video, whatever, Judd Apatow draft. The first pick goes to Freaks and Geeks. That's right, the short-lived Judd Apatow television show that basically launched the last 20 years of Hollywood. The people that he cast on Freaks and Geeks, a show that only aired for 9 episodes, 10 episodes, whatever. Incredible, incredible show. First pick in the draft of the Judd Apatow draft is Freaks and Geeks. Second pick, he was a director, he was a writer, he was a producer, he even played small roles on the show. Mostly he was behind the scenes, and a lot of people, I don't think now knowing who Judd Apatow is, knows how important and how big behind the scenes he was. With the second pick, we're taking The Larry Sanders Show. The Larry Sanders Show on HBO. That was one of the very first things that Judd Apatow did. Got him noticed. A lot of people went, maybe we ought to pay attention to this guy. With the third pick in the Judd Apatow pick, I'm going to go into his movie collection, and I'm taking what I think is his finest movie. Ladies and gentlemen, Pineapple Express. Pineapple Express is number 4 in the Judd Apatow draft. Number 5 in the Judd Apatow draft. We're going Knocked Up. We're going Knocked Up in the Judd Apatow draft. There you go. That's it. That's your top 5. 1, Freaks and Geeks. 2, The Larry Sanders Show. 3, 40-Year-Old Virgin. Right? Wait. I'm sorry. Did I read this wrong? Freaks and Geeks is number 1. Larry Sanders Show is number 2. 3 is Pineapple Express. 4 is 40-Year-Old Virgin, and 5 is Knocked Up. There you go. That's it. I'm sorry. I had it wrong. Can you develop like late stage dyslexia? Is that a thing? Because I'm starting to, maybe it's my glasses. We are inviting a whole bunch of people to camp though, because Judd Apatow, even when he shits the bed, it's still something that you can lay there for 90 minutes and just stare at and not be angry at yourself when it's over. You may not love it, but it's, it's not going to cause you any kind of personal crisis about how you're using your time. You can basically watch a Judd Apatow piece of content anywhere, anytime, and you'll be fine. All right, here are the camp invites. Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. It doesn't matter where that movie's at. If it's on, I'll leave it on and I'll just watch it from that point. Walk Hard makes You Don't Mess with the Zohan. What? Oh, I know. You guys are like, what, that stupid Adam Sandler movie? Ever seen it? That movie packs some big laughs, man. There are some really funny scenes in Don't Mess with the Zohan. And because of that, I'm going to let them come to camp. I'm going to see what they can do in camp. How about funny people? Funny people. It's about comedians, about serious. It's about how funny people deal with the serious bullshit of life. Has a lot to do with, see it. It's good. It's very good. Don't really want to go into funny people. This is 40. A movie that he made starring, was it Paul Rudd? Was it Paul Rudd and Leslie Mann, Judd Apatow's real life wife, starred in This is 40. And it was supposed to be basically about them, about Leslie Mann and Judd Apatow turning 40 with, young kids and all that. He just cast Paul Rudd to play him. This is 40. I love that movie. Undeclared, another tremendous Judd Apatow TV show is going to get a camp invite. That show also, you look at the cast of that show and you're like, everybody on that show became super famous too. And what else are we gonna do? Ben Stiller show. Yeah, he was a producer and a writer on the Ben Stiller show, which was another very short-lived sketch comedy show for Fox that was absolutely brilliant. The The one season of the Ben Stiller Show on Fox was absolutely brilliant. And Fox pulled it because it was so brilliant that it made people go, I don't know if I've ever seen this before. No, you haven't seen this before because this is new and you're supposed to like it. I don't like things that are new. So Fox canceled it. And then it won like a whole bunch of shit at the Emmys like 9 months later. And Fox was really embarrassed. They're like, oh, so I guess we got rid of the show that everybody likes. So we're also going to invite the Ben Stiller Show. Also getting a camp invite from the Judd Apatow draft. Camp invite to The King of Staten Island, which is a really nice film. Really nice, serious movie. Semi-autobiographical about Pete Davidson. If you ever wanted to know, like, I don't get Pete Davidson. I don't get Pete Davidson. I saw King of Staten Island. I think I maybe get Pete Davidson a little bit differently now, but still, great movie. All right, so there you have it. That's your Judd Apatow draft on this. His birthday, Judd Apatow, born on this day in 1967. Born on this day in 1982, Robbie Gould, good as gold, American kicker, my favorite kicker of all time. That's right, I've got a favorite kicker. Born on this day in 1992, Johnny Manziel. Or do you say Johnny Manziel? Johnny Manziel, American football player, born on this day in 1992. How about a couple of deaths? We'll run through the deaths and then we'll get into all the things that are trending today. St. Nicholas died on this day in 343. I don't want to bum you out here at Christmas time, but yeah. This is the St. Nicholas. This is the St. Nicholas that St. Nick is based on. Greek bishop and St. Nicholas died on this day in 343. Don't know what he died of. Probably coronavirus. Dead on this day in 1988, Roy Orbison. Roy Orbison had like a hit in like 1965 and then had nothing for like 30 years. And then the Traveling Wilburys came around and they're like, hey, we want Roy Orbison in the band. And then all of a sudden, Roy Orbison had a solo hit. He was in the Wilburys. It was like after like 25 years of just being someone I never heard of. After that, he explodes. And then he dies. He dies young. He wasn't even that old. How old was Roy Orbison when he died? Well, okay, let's do the math. So he was 48, 49, 50, 51, 50. Oh my God, Roy Orbison was younger than me. Roy Orbison was younger than me when he died. Dead on this. Holy cow, that is so weird. Oh, you know what else? I don't think Roy Orbison was blind. Here's why I say it like that. Because I always thought Roy Orbison was blind, like back in the 80s, because he always wore the wraparound sunglasses, right? And so, or wait, is he blind? Wait, okay, so I'm so confused. Like, I used to think he was blind, but then I think at some point I learned that he wasn't blind, but I didn't really commit that to memory. So now my default is that I just think he's blind because I'm not sure if I heard that he wasn't blind. So I don't know. So here we are. Was Roy Orbison blind? He wore dark wraparound sunglasses. That's all I'm saying. Dead on this day in 2000, the great Werner Klemperer. That's right. Werner Klemperer died on this day in 2000. Do you know who he did one thing? Clink. He was Clink on Hogan's Heroes. You remember on Hogan's Heroes? Hogan. Clink. That was Werner Klemperer. Werner Klemperer. Clink. Clink died on this day in 2000. All right, let's get into what is trending. Do we feel like we understand what today has been? We went through the history, all right? We know about Teddy Roosevelt altering the Monroe Doctrine on this day. We know about Altamont. We learned about some birthdays, huh? We celebrated Judd Apatow. We said goodbye to Clink. We did all that stuff. Do you feel like you have an understanding of what December 6th is? Because I feel like I do. So I am comfortable jumping into all of the things that are trending today, all of the stories that are happening. Hold on a second. Sorry, I thought I just lost something. All right, let's get into it. The big thing that's trending today is Georgia. They got some, we don't do politics here, but they got some fun stuff going on in Georgia. Big senatorial election. You got Herschel Walker, and then you got the other guy. It's like, what, the other guy. You know why he's the other guy? Because he's not silly. That's why it's the other guy. You got Herschel Walker, and then you got the non-silly guy. So let's just see how that all. But I get, you want to get political. I don't want to get political. I'm just looking at two men. I'm seeing one silly man in one not so silly man. And I don't give a fuck about party politics or any of that shit. That's not how I play. I see a silly man and I see a normal man. And that's what's going on in Georgia. I don't live in Georgia. I don't give a shit. There's actually a weird, dark part of me that wants Herschel Walker to win because, man, there's going to be some silly, silly stuff that happens. There is just going to be. But will I get tired of that? I think I will get tired of that. I think I get tired of that. I don't know. Whatever. Georgia, you're up, kids. You got an election. Do your thing. North Carolina power outages is still trending. We didn't talk about this because we were off yesterday. Had a last minute kid duty thing I had to do. Apologize for that. But we would have talked yesterday about the North Carolina power outages. This happened on Saturday night in Morse County. Like over there by like North Carolina, like by Duke. I guess it's over by Duke because the power company is called Duke Electric. So somebody, maybe multiple people, I don't know. At some point on Saturday, somebody attacked a couple of power substations in North Carolina, shutting down power for like 40,000 people. They used guns, whatever. It was an attack. It was it's being described as a act of domestic terror. 40,000 people in that area have no power. Now, I don't know if that's a lot. 40,000 is a big number. I mean, it's a lot of anything. You say, hey, Pugs, you want 40,000 pennies? I'll be like, yeah. And then trying to do the math, how much that would be. Hey, you want 40,000? Yeah. You want 40,000 subscribers? Yeah. You know what I mean? It's a big number. But I don't know if in terms of power outages in metropolitan areas, if that's a big number. Like you could say 240,000 people. And I'd be like, that's a lot of people. And then you could say 18,000 people. And I'd go, that's a lot of people. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what if 40,000 is like really, I don't know, whatever. They're having a tough time though. They can't get the power back on. Say some people are going to be out of power until Thursday. Do you imagine that? 40,000. Yeah, Tartan says 40,000 is a lot, especially when it's freezing. Freezing? It's North Carolina. It ain't freezing yet in North Carolina. Is it? Is it cold in North Carolina? North Carolina's warm. It's the South, right? It's not like Michigan. It's not like this happened in like the Upper Peninsula of Michigan in December. It's North Carolina. You pearl clutcher, stop it. Look, 40,000 people without power. Look, being without power is awful. So just ain't nobody freezing to death. It's just a terrible inconvenience. And, there's all kinds of, we're not going to go into it, but there's people saying it was done because of drag shows. Okay. All right. Maybe it was. So if that is the thing, so apparently there was like a drag show going on in like Raleigh or somewhere. I don't know, wherever. I'm always surprised by this. It's like North Carolina's doing drag shows? Really? Maybe we only know North Carolina is doing drag shows because when they do drag shows in Boston, nobody makes a big deal about it. You know what I mean? But it's like when they do a drag show in Frisco, suddenly it's like, do declare. People get all freaked out. Do a drag show in North Carolina, people freak out. Do a drag show in Philadelphia. Nobody gonna care. It's like whatever. Do a drag show in Vegas. Yeah, nobody gonna care. But apparently they're saying that apparently there are a lot of people upset. There were a bunch of threats that were made, and they think that this may have something to do with the drag show. But walk me through this. So you're just going to like wildly inconvenience 40,000 of your fellow community members because one stupid ass bar decided to do a drag show in downtown Raleigh on a Saturday night. Who are we dealing with here? I mean, what kind of absolute morons are we dealing with here? And they're going to catch them. They're going to catch them. They catch everybody. All right. So that's what's happening in North Carolina. Possibly until Thursday, they won't have their power back on. Will now, of course, all the media, will we see more of this? What else is vulnerable? Everything's vulnerable. Everything in this country is vulnerable as far as our infrastructure goes because we haven't made infrastructure a priority in this country for, decades now. Generations have grown up in this country driving on shit roads, dangerous bridges, and drinking horrible water. We don't do anything with infrastructure in this country. So yeah, all of our power substations are extremely vulnerable. Don't act like we should just be discovering this now. It's kind of been a topic of debate for a good, 20 years? 20 years? So stop it. Stop trying to scare people. The Joe Biden infrastructure, that's not the guy who just became president 2 years' fault that nobody has done anything to upgrade our infrastructure in 50 years. It's not the new guys. And guess what else's fault? It's not Trump's fault either. Trump had infrastructure week and he couldn't get anything passed. Oh, shut up. It has nothing to do with the two guys sitting in the big chair. Biden or Trump. Has everything to do with the other rubes that we vote for to represent us in Congress. It's those people. It ain't the dumbasses that sit in the big leather chair who take all the arrows. Those people are figureheads. It's all about the morons that we elect, election in and election out. We vote for the same guy. All the people in Congress suck except my guy. So when it comes time to vote, I'm voting for my guy. And guess what we end up having? We end up having the same fucking same people. Re-election. Congress has there's 10% approval rating with an 80% re-election rate. It's not them, man. We, the people, we need to start going, we got to get our shit together because you know what? We're just vote everybody out. So I would say start new, all new, never vote for the same person twice in an election. And maybe then our power stations won't be so vulnerable. Maybe then we won't have to worry about driving over a bridge in Minnesota during rush hour and having it collapse onto the highway below. Maybe then we can drink water in places like, Jackson, Mississippi or Flint, Michigan without having to worry about it killing us or sending us to the emergency room. But no, not until we start voting out all the idiots who have been destroying this country. Hey, you're not supposed to do politics. Yeah, look, I think it's all right to say that all politics sucks. Just don't bring that shit where you pretend one side is better than the other because they're all monsters. Some are just a little bit meaner monsters. Some are pussy monsters who just, have these unrealistic ideas. And then, they're just dickhead monsters, just asshole monsters. And you need to be able to, that's it. That's what politics is. Those two groups, pussy monsters and dickhead monsters, but they're all monsters. Make no mistake. Real ID is trending. Real ID. You remember this thing? This a couple of years ago, they said everybody in America needs to have this new ID if they want to fly on airplanes. Real ID. They're I think the first time it was they probably brought it up in 1980, right? No, I know it goes back to post 9/11, but it was years ago. They're real ID in 2 years, everybody's going to have the real ID. And then those 2 years came and they're yeah, we're extending it. It's going to be 2 more years. You don't have to have your real ID for 2 more years. And then the deadline was coming up. We were all supposed to have anybody got their real. I've never seen a real ID. I have no idea if they even exist in the wild. I don't know anybody who has a real ID. But anyway, the deadline was coming up. It was March of 2023. If you don't have your real ID by March of 2023, and they told us this in 2018. If you don't have and it seems so far off, but now here we are. We're coming up on whatever it is, the deadline. Well, they extended it again. They tossed it down the road another 2 years. So don't worry about it. If you don't have your real ID, I don't have my real ID, nobody's got their real ID. Don't worry about it. Just don't worry. Yes, it was supposed to be due in a couple of months, but don't you worry about it. They just kicked it down the road again. We ain't never going to have this real ID. We're never going to have it. I don't care. It's fine. By the way, you don't have to have a real ID if you have a passport. I have a passport. It works. I'm just going to use that. The passports work fine. Any thoughts on the real ID? No, I got no more thoughts on it. Just don't worry about it. Oh, they're saying it was because of COVID. That this time they've got a good reason. The good reason is because, and this actually is a good reason. All right. So the reason that they're saying that they kicked it down is they're saying that because for the last 2 years, most driver's license facilities in states and most of these operations, these facilities and all that kinds of stuff, they've all been closed. They've all been closed because of the coronavirus. I know in Illinois there were, because right in the middle of the coronavirus, my driver's license expired. And I couldn't get a new driver's license. I couldn't go. I needed to take an eye test. That was the one that you got to take an eye test this time. So I couldn't, they weren't offering eye tests. So I couldn't renew my driver's license. So at some point, the state of Illinois just said, you know what, you're all good forever. And then I just got a new driver's license in the mail from them. It said, here you go. We just renewed it. Don't worry about the eye test. So I understand that there were a lot of changes to local, driver's license and identification facilities and all that during COVID. So they're saying that all of the state facilities have been, backlogged now for like 18 months. So we got to give them a little bit of time to get caught up. And that's why Real ID. Flu is trending. Flu is trending because this year the flu outbreak is much worse than it has been in the past. Oh, clutch your pearls and pray to Jesus and scream about the coming Armageddon. Just stop it. This is so stupid. Yes, the flu season is bad, but it seems to me that every couple of years they talk about how bad the flu season is. It seems to me like that's like maybe last year we didn't hear anything about flu season being bad because maybe it wasn't. Maybe it was just like a normal. But the year before, it's like flu season is terrible. I mean, this is not the first time that they've been going, it's the worst flu season ever. But they don't do that every year. It's not like every year is the worst. Like, for instance, during the peak of the coronavirus, flu season was way down. Because why? Because we were all being cleaner. We were all washing. We were using hand lotions. We were using masks. So it went down. But now this year, we're seeing new, I don't know if it's records, but we're seeing a lot of people with the flu. Why? Because we're living our life like normal people again. And you know what the flu is? The flu is a seasonal thing that is a normal part of being a human being. So flu is back. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome home, flu. Now every time we get the sniffles or a little sore throat, we don't think we're going to die. Oh, did you go through that? I'll tell you, let's say 2 years. Let's just say for the 2 years that the coronavirus was a thing, I was never healthier. I had my allergy attacks and all that, but those are totally different than any of the symptoms for the other things. So I was able to deal with that. But I had no flu. I had no colds. I had none of that the entire time the coronavirus was going on because I was being super careful because I was just, wasn't going places, wasn't around people. And then I got my second coronavirus shot, or my third. It was my booster. I got my booster shot. And, I got sick as a dog about a year ago today. When was my third shot? Was it? Because it was about a year ago this time. I hadn't been that sick in 2 years. And it was a reaction to the shot, the vaccine. And it only lasted 12 hours. I mean, and when it left, it left. I mean, I took a nap. I was super sick. I fell asleep in the middle of the day. I woke up like 90 minutes, 2 hours later, woke up totally fine. So it was short, but man, I hadn't been that sick. And that was from the vaccine until about 3 weeks ago. Remember a couple of weeks ago, I had this flu. Whatever this flu is that's going around this season, it sucks. It was bad. It knocked me. This flu knocked me on me. I missed an entire week of shows. I mean, the reaction to the shot that I got, which was last year at this time, that lasted about 12 to 20 hours. It was gone. It was there. It hit me hard and it was gone. It hit me hard. This bitch that I went through about 3 weeks ago, this thing lingered. This thing was like a low-grade fever with a sore throat and just no energy. It was bad. It was bad. Yet another wave of viral illness is crashing on a health system already stretched to a breaking point. Driving the news is the worst flu outbreak in more than a decade. It has left nearly every state in the United States with high or very high levels of flu activity, underscoring how pandemic precautions may have left us more vulnerable to seasonal respiratory diseases. Flu-connected hospital admissions over Thanksgiving week almost doubled over the previous week and were the highest seen for that period since the 2010-2011 season. Adults 65 and older and kids 4 and under have been hit particularly hard, especially if they had underlying health conditions. 4 in 10 Americans say they don't plan to get a flu shot this season, largely over concerns the vaccine. Okay, stop. We're not going to go into that. You rubes got flu shots your entire life, and now you're not getting it. That's fine. That's fine. You don't want to get it. I don't think you should be forced to get them unless it's something that's really contagious and you're going to get the rest of us sick, but we don't want to go into that because we don't do politics here. I never get a flu shot. I never get a flu shot. I mean, when it's mandated, like when you got to like, you can't go to school without a flu or whatever, you know what I mean? Like you can't play on the team without, I mean, but ever since then, I haven't like gotten regular vaccinations. not because it's not because I have some. I mean, I know a lot of people in my same position might pretend like they have some really serious and well-studied opinions on why vaccinations aren't bad. I'm just lazy. I'm not going to go. I'm not going to go to the CVS and, get my, I'm not going to wait in line. Whatever. I'll risk it. I'll roll the dice. My body's pretty good. When I get sick, when I get a cold, when I get a flu or whatever, I just fight it off. I don't typically use any antibiotics. I just miss a week of shows. That's it. Yeah, maybe if you did take something, you'd have only missed like a day. Instead, you missed 5 because you refused to take your flu seriously. Anyway, flu's a big deal. Kirstie Alley. Kirstie Alley is trending. Kirstie Alley died yesterday. Kirstie Alley, boy, she was Rebecca on Cheers. 71 years old, 72 years old, something like that. I don't know. What else did Kirstie Alley do? Kirstie Alley draft. No, we're not going to do a Kirstie Alley draft. She was, she replaced Shelley Long on Cheers, so she is absolutely best known as Rebecca Howe on Cheers. But before that, she was in movies. She was in the Star Trek movies. She was, didn't she shave her head? Was she the girl who shaved her head? I don't know. I'm not sure. She did the Look Who's Talking movies with John Travolta. She did another very funny show called Fat Actress, where she basically satirized the idea that she was an older, heavy actress who couldn't get work. Yep, there you go. She died. She died of cancer. She apparently didn't tell anybody that she had it. Only her closest relatives were let in on it in the final few days. And there you have it. She went out the way she wanted to go. Kirstie Alley, American television icon, dead at the age of 71. GMA3 is also trending. I don't even want to spend a lot of time on this, but apparently, I don't even know what GMA3 is, okay? I barely know what GMA is. GMA is Good Morning America, right? Who's on that? Michael Strahan? Who else? I don't know. But apparently there's a GMA2, which is not what we're talking about. And then there's like a GMA3. What is there, a GMA streaming channel? Anyway, Amy Robach and this guy named TJ or JT. What is his name? Was it JJ Holmes? I don't know, whatever. Robach and Holmes. They host this Good Morning America 3, which, what is that? When does that come in? Come on, in the evening? Good Morning America Evening Edition? Talk about milking it. I mean, this is why, oh God, corporate media. So they were hosts of the show, and they were both married, and now people are learning that they're doing it. They're doing it. They're like hooking up, and they're not even hiding it. They're going out in public. They're holding hands in public, so they don't care. They don't care about whatever. They've decided that they are not going to hide their love anymore. So the two co-hosts of Good Morning America 3, Holmes and Robach, are out there running around, spending weekends together in the Hamptons, all that kind of stuff. Became a bit of a scandal. Became a big gossip. Oh my God, they're both married. Well, I'm sure they're both like, I mean, if they're going out in public, they're very high. Well, not very high profile. I don't even know who they are. But in some arguments, you could say that they're high profile because they're on TV and people know who they are. And obviously, this whole scandal has received a lot of attention. So they're somebody, but they're willing to hold hands in public. And they're not worried about, the New York Post putting it on their front page, which they did. And they're not worried about their significant other seeing it. So there must be something going, you know what I mean? Like maybe, well, yes, of course, I'm still married, but we've been separated for the last year. So something like that is going on, obviously. This is obviously not a gotcha. It's not a, we caught you. No, they're out on the sidewalk holding hands in New York. They're not hiding. So it's not a scandal. Now, the reaction to it among, I don't even know who the fuck, fans of the show. Wait, there are fans of Good Morning America 3? There are fans? I really prefer Good Morning America 3 over both Good Morning America 2 and 1. Who are these people? Anyway, they're off the air. Off the air! Suspended off the air! ABC or whoever the hell creates this nonsense show, they kick these two people off the air because they're having sex, because they're a couple. Don't we got Joe and Mika over on? This is not a thing. Couples are on TV all the time. I don't understand it. I don't understand it. I don't why. Here's what I understand. Okay, so when we look at it from the perspective that we're looking at, okay, these two people, they host Good Morning America 3, they're both married, but they seem to be in an affair. That affair has been made public, and now everybody knows that they're doing it. So you take them off the air. Why are you taking them off the air? Are you punishing them for cheating on their spouse? Well, that's not your position. That's not the why do the producers? Are you concerned that middle America will judge them? Middle America will get over a whole bunch of shit. Middle America doesn't give a crap about anything. They give a crap. Middle America gives a crap about shit for about 45 minutes. And then something new comes on TV and they totally forget about what they were upset about. So don't give me we had to take them off the air because their vulgar displays of love have proven to be untenable in Middle America and our ratings depend on. Don't give me that bullshit. Here's why they pulled them off the air. They pulled them off the air because it keeps the story going. Pulled them off because nobody even knew Good Morning America 3 was a thing. I didn't even know who these two people were until like a week ago when the story. And the story was starting to die out. People were moving on. So how do you keep it trending? How do you keep attention on your stupid little Good Morning America 3? You take them off the air. Take them off the air. That'll get you at least another 1 or 2 news cycles, because what's going to happen now, people are going to want to talk to them. Oh, and there's going to be a big interview. And I bet you they do a big interview with Good Morning America. I'm just telling you, this is all a plan. Ain't nobody. First of all, there is nobody in the control room at Good Morning America 3 who didn't know that these two were doing it. I'm sorry, it wasn't a shock. It wasn't like, well, when we found out by reading People magazine, we immediately took them off the air. Oh, shut up. Shut up. You've been out to dinner with them where they've held hands. You know what's going on. This is such a dumb story. Let's see. What else do we have here? Oh, this one. CVS. Did you see this story? I know I mentioned CVS. I mentioned CVS like going there for free flu shots and all that stuff, but I don't think I'm going to be doing that stuff again. I may never go to CVS again. Did you see this news story? So when you sign out, here, where's the story? Okay, so here's the story that was trending. When you buy something at CVS and it says, "Would you like to donate, some money to the Diabetes Foundation?" You're self checkout, and I always see that, and sometimes I say yes, sometimes I say no. I don't know. From now on, I'm saying no. Because you know what CVS was doing? CVS made a pledge to the Diabetes Foundation or whatever it was. Actually, here, I'll read you the story. Well, actually, I'll tell you how I understand the story. CVS promised like $10 million in donations to a charity. And the way they decided to raise the $10 million was by having you and me and all of us, the customers, we think we're just donating to this charity out of the goodness of our heart. We're assuming that CVS is already involved in this charity. No, CVS is being sued because that's what they were doing. They were using us to pay the donation that they had pledged to make years ago that never got around to making. So now CVS is saying, hey, you want to donate to the diabetes? And then they're putting that all in a fund and they're trying to masquerade it as their own. Yeah. CVS is being sued for using customer donations at checkout to fund a corporate philanthropy pledge. So they pledged, we at CVS, we want all the credit for being so great and so awesome. And here, check it out. We're going to give $10 million to this group. That's right. Tell us how awesome we are. Look at how nice we are. And then years go by and they don't make the donation. And then suddenly when you check out at CVS, they're like, hey, you want to donate to the diabetes? These people suck. Here's the story. In November 2021, U.S. pharmaceutical giant CVS announced a $10 million commitment to the American Diabetes Association to be delivered over 3 years. Introducing its pledge, CVS's social responsibility team said the donations would support families dealing with diabetes and fund research to eradicate health disparities. The company also said that it would host an in-store fundraising campaign at all CVS pharmacy locations nationwide during the National Diabetes Month to give customers an opportunity to support the ADA. So a couple of years ago, they promised to get behind Diabetes Association and donate $10 million. We're going to donate $10 million. We're going to do all these things at our stores. They didn't do any of them. What CVS omitted, according to the lawsuit, let's see, is that the donations collected from customers through in-store fundraising weren't going to be in addition to the initial pledge that CVS has made. Rather, they would be used in lieu of the donations coming. So CVS ain't giving any of their own money. They're like, yeah, we want to give the Diabetes Foundation $10 million. Oh, isn't CVS wonderful? Giving us time. And now they're making us give it to them. These bastards. You know what CVS has done? They've ruined it. I will not, because of this one story, I will never donate at checkout ever again. Sorry, shut that down. One bad apple. That's right. Neuralink. Neuralink is trending. Do you know what Neuralink is? Neuralink is another one of these Elon Musk companies. Neuralink is doing some really awesome stuff, man. Look, I'll tell you, I've been clear. I think I've been pretty clear about Elon Musk. That dude's a weirdo. That guy's weird. He's like a weirdo. He's a creep. He's like a nerd. He's just there's like a whole bunch of like, he ain't cool. He ain't funny. He's brilliant. He's brilliant. You can't deny that. He's a weirdo. Let's stop pretending like I want to be like Elon Musk. No, you don't. Because that dude had to make $100 billion before anybody would sleep with him. You do not want to be Elon Musk. You might want to have Elon Musk's money, but first of all, he's on the like he's got some issues that also, you know, make him the kind of person that he is, which is good. There's good and bad, but he's a weirdo. Okay, so that has always been my consistent take on Elon Musk. I don't like him. I think he's weird. I don't trust him. He's a genius and he's doing some really, really interesting work. But let's not saint the dude, okay? Because the guy created electric cars that look nice doesn't mean that he needs to be on the $10 bill, right? We don't need to do that. Neuralink, however, you know, he's got Tesla, he's got Twitter now, but that's not really his thing. He's got Tesla. What else has he got? He's SpaceX, he's got the Boring Company, and he's got Neuralink. Neuralink is fascinating, man. He is doing amazing work. This company is trying to solve paralysis, trying to solve blindness, trying to solve all of these things that, you know, we've just pretty much washed our hands of and figured, well, we're never gonna be able to fix that. That's what he's doing with Neuralink. Now, why is Neuralink trending? Well, because they're experimenting on animals. And man, I love me some animals. But you know what else I love? Human achievement. And unfortunately, we have a pecking order, and animals are not going to be curing cancer. So, you know, that's kind of left up to us. So we got to do shit. We got to work on shit. And people are saying that he's doing some atrocious, Muskenstein? They're calling him Muskenstein because he's seen some of the things. Look, I don't want to know how the sausage is made, but I'll tell you, I'll cry a tear of joy the first time I see a 5-year-old who's been paralyzed since birth be able to take his first steps. So, you know, that's what I'm focusing on. I'm focusing on what can be achieved with this thing that they're trying to do. I know. Monkeys have it bad. Caged monkeys in laboratories undergoing tests, that ain't good. You know who else has it bad? 4-year-olds who've never walked before. Yeah, they got it bad too. Wouldn't it be nice to see them walk? So this whole Neuralink story, I'm an animal lover, but I turn my nose up at this, you know, let's just hate them because, you know, they're testing on animals. Well, how do you think everything has ever come to be? That's what we do. That's what we do. We test things on animals first. And if they don't explode or burst into flames, then we give it to a human. And we say, yeah, same thing. Yeah. Well, I'm having a little constipation after taking this. Yeah, the monkey was too. The monkey was constipated. It's like that's how we know. All right, moving on. Tapping out on animal testing. I'm Leslie. I am so thin-skinned about things. I can't. This isn't even about animal testing. It's about the risks that we make. It's about the choices that we have to be confronted with as human beings. Do you want to further human advancement? Do you? Well, then you know what? A couple of fucking monkeys are probably going to die. That's just the world, man. Don't animal testing. Pugs was advocating for animal cruelty all day today. That's how it gets spinned. Remember, we were talking earlier about how narratives get changed through the telephone game and then they just become programming. So the programming to that would be that there's probably somebody I've never met who knows of this show because Leslie went, he talks about animal testing. What's the matter, Leslie? Did you tap out or are you still there? She's still there. Tapping out on animal testing. It's one fucking subject. It's what I've done 15 subjects. We're moving on. Yes. Sorry, folks. We're going to do the next 45 minutes on animal testing. No, it's important. It's just important to not let yourself get emotionally involved in these things and actually look at the big picture. What are the goals? What are the aspirations of Neuralink? They're pretty lofty. They're pretty impressive. And all of us should be a little bit, rooting for them. Because the stuff that they're trying to do is really incredible stuff. And, I'm sorry, a bunch of PETA people, a bunch of weird ass. You can't, but I don't care if I don't care if it'll cure cancer. They hurt hamsters. Jesus, man. All you can do, stop trying to control, the outside. Just control your own little world. Just be nice to the animals in your world, okay? And then hope that your neighbor is nice to the animals in his world, right? Stop trying to control the outside world. All you can do is your part. You're not a king. You're not a monarch. You're not an emperor. You're just a person. You're just a person, and you have to live your life according to the things that you think are the best way to do it. And stop trying to just... They can't do animal testing. Do you know what happened if they stopped animal testing? Hey, you're talking about animal testing now. I know I am. It's a disturbing subject. It's not... All right, moving on. Leslie made me go an extra 5 minutes on animal testing. Well done, Leslie. Well done. She knew what she was doing. Leslie and I are old friends. HLN. HLN is trending. Do you know what HLN is? I mean... HLN, headline news. You know that secondary loser channel that CNN has, which is saying a lot because, most people would consider CNN to be the primary loser channel. HLN, where do you see HL airports? HLN, is that it? HLN is going off the air. That's right. CNN is doing a whole bunch of cutbacks. They're, they don't want to... we got to fire people, and they're not going to fire like really high profile, expensive anchors. So they'll fire like 100 producers who make $40,000 a year. That's it. That's what they'll do. But one of the things they did is they're closing down HLN. And HLN, the headline news, I guess they did their final show today. Robin Meade, the lovely Robin Meade. I love Robin Meade. Robin Meade used to be a local Channel 5 girl in Chicago. And then she left, and then she went to Headline News. And she's been there like 20 years. She's a delight. Robin Meade is an absolute delight. She signed off today for the... I hadn't even thought of Robin Meade until I just saw this story. Robin Meade's final sign-off as HLN goes dark. There you go. So, and don't act like, HLN is going away. You never watched HLN. Nobody watches Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan versus The Rock is trending. All right, so this is about, there's some dude, boy, if the animal testing didn't scare Leslie off, Joe Rogan talk sure will. So there's a dude called the Liver King who's like a big fraud. He's like a macho muscle dude who does YouTube videos, and he's like macho, and he talks all that toxic masculinity bullshit where he's like just got the beard and the tats, and he's all ripped up, and he eats raw meat. And he's like, so he advocates for this like natural raw meat eating diet. And, the promise is if you do that, if you just eat like a pig's ass for dinner every day, just go to the yard, pick the pig up and just eat his ass, and you're going to look like me. That's what he's saying. He's saying this because he eats a bunch of raw meat and specifically liver. He loves animal livers. Like, he's the Liver King. Total fucking shit for morons, but whatever. Apparently this dude's been doing steroids, and he's been outed as, he doesn't have this physique because of the eating of the liver in the pig's butt and all that stuff. No, he's the $12,000 a week. I think it said $12,000 a week in steroids. Anyway, That isn't being denied. That's a thing that came out. He has addressed it. Joe Rogan on his show apparently was talking about the Liver King and about the steroids and about how Joe Rogan is saying, he's like, I always knew he was on steroids. I always knew he was on steroids. You could tell, blah, blah, blah. But now Joe Rogan is basically calling out The Rock to admit that he is using steroids or that he has used steroids, which is interesting. Look, I can find a Joe Rogan story to comment on absolutely every day because dude trends ad nauseum. He's constantly trending. But this one is interesting because, elephant in the room. Everybody knows Rock is a roid guy, right? Anybody who knows what a roid guy looks like looks at The Rock, looks at Batista, looks at all of these guys and goes, yeah, that's not powerlifting body. That's steroids. That is somebody who specifically shot an artificial substance into areas of his body and then amplified those. That is not a natural. So Joe Rogan is basically calling out, and it's not like Joe Rogan doesn't have a massive platform. Joe Rogan is calling out The Rock to admit that, he uses steroids or has used steroids or whatever it is. But I say it's interesting because, I love The Rock. I think The Rock is a charming son of a bitch. I find him very funny. I find him very charming. I find him charismatic. He's an interesting guy, but he's a roider. You know what I mean? It's obvious. That's another part of him. People are complicated. People have all kinds of different things. He's definitely a steroid user. And I don't know that he's ever addressed it. In light of the Liver King being exposed for taking steroids and lying to the entire world, Joe Rogan is calling for Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson to, quote, come clean and admit that he too takes or has taken steroids. He still takes them. The Rock is maintaining, okay? That is not being maintained naturally. After he was exposed, the Liver King, in light of the Liver King being exposed for taking steroids and lying to the entire world, Joe Rogan is now calling on Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. Rogan, who was always convinced that the Liver King was on roids, didn't appreciate the Liver King's nonsense-filled apology when he was outed as taking steroids. With the Liver King's steroid use dominating headlines. See, this is like that bubble. This is the meatball bubble. Right? So in the world of Joe Rogan, in the meathead Joe Rogan crowd, that's dominating the headlines. The big story in the meatball bubble is that the Liver King has taken steroids. That's funny to me. God. You could go inside the bubble. You could walk inside the bubble, pull up a chair, sit. Let's do a couple episodes of Joe Rogan. Hell, you can listen to every episode. It doesn't matter. You can be a tourist in the world of the meatball. But dude, get the fuck out of the bubble. Just leave. When you're done, go, all right, that was interesting. I learned a whole bunch of stuff. Now I'm going to go back out into the real world where the Liver King taking steroids isn't the number one story. Gotta imagine. Let's see here. What else do we have? Oh, expats best cities list. Isn't this fun? Oh, isn't this fun? All right. What do you think are the 10 best cities to live in outside of America? Like if you had to, the top 10 cities to live and work abroad, in 2023. All right. Let's see here. Number 1, I'll run through them and I'll tell you whether or not I've got Valencia, Spain. Nope, not interested. Not interested in Valencia, Spain. It looks beautiful. I could probably make this work because of any language. See, look, my rule is I don't want to go to a country I don't speak English. I know that's very limiting, but Australia seems like far. But that would be my most exotic. I don't think I'll ever get there. I'm going to stick it to England. I'm going to stick with Ireland, Scotland, places they speak English. But Spanish. I live in Texas. I could probably get through in Spain, but I don't want to go live in Valencia, Spain. Number 2 most popular places for American expatriates to move: Dubai, United Arab Emirates. Not a chance. Not a chance. I ain't going to Dubai. Number 3, Mexico City. Isn't that like the kidnapping capital of the world? I think I look a little bit too American. I don't know. I don't think so. Not number 4 on the list of most popular places for expats to live. Lisbon, Portugal. You could tell me that Lisbon, Portugal is a fantasy place from Narnia. Where is Portugal? Where is Lisbon? I mean, I know it's a thing. Obviously, I know Lisbon is a place in Portugal. By Spain? Is this also by Spain? What do they speak? Portuguese? Do they speak Portuguese? They speak Portuguese where? In Portugal and Brazil? That's it? Number 5 on the list of the most popular place. Spain, again. Madrid, Spain. I don't want to go live in Spain. Spain seems... Actually, you know what? I could probably be convinced because now that I'm thinking... Spanish women are beautiful. Spanish food is incredible. Spanish architecture and history is just awe-inspiring. Still don't want to move there. Still don't want to. Number 6, Bangkok, Thailand. Man, let me tell you something. Somebody in your world tells you they're moving to Bangkok, Thailand, and they're not like a hedge fund operator or somebody who works in high finance, and they're moving to Bangkok, Thailand. Like maybe they're like a photographer. Maybe they would do a lot of work with the local little league teams and the schools, and all of a sudden they're moving. Nobody's moving. Nobody normal moves from America to Bangkok, Thailand, unless you work in high finance. Because the high finance people in that part of the world, it's a lot of money. It's a lot of money is all I'm saying. But if you're not like working for a bank, like if you're not like a president of like international trading for a bank who's moving to Bangkok and living on the 95th floor of some super tower, you're real suspicious in my book. He just moved to Bangkok and he like lives in a funky apartment off the beach and he takes pictures of local kids. Oh, I bet he does. I bet he does. Number 7. All right, here we go. Number 7 on the list of places you may want to live, right? Number 7. This is a place that until a couple of years ago, I didn't even know was a place. And I've become a little bit familiar with it. And I'll tell you, I could move here. I could live here. Number 7 on the list, the most popular places for expatriates, Americans to go live abroad. Basel, Switzerland. Basel, Switzerland. Dude, I could do some living in Switzerland. I don't know where Switzerland is. I don't. I think, I know where it is. I know where it is. But I don't know where it is. Like I think like in my mind, like if I was going to say Switzerland, it's right next to Sweden, right? I think Switzerland is like up there by Norway and Sweden, but it's not. It's like by Italy. It's like at the top of Italy. It's like in that area. And that's an area I very rarely think about. I always want to think that like probably because of the Alps and skiing and then Sweden and skiing and all of that. I think that's why I confuse them. But whatever. Basel, Switzerland, number 7 on the list of the most popular places for expatriates to live. Switzerland's just awesome. Switzerland is just it's international. It's classy. It's got a whole lot of cool ass history. A lot of like European nonsense occurred there. Again, the women, just like Spain, different Spanish women, they're darker complected with darker hair and darker features and so beautiful. But then Swiss miss, I'm just telling you. No, see, you know what? I'm thinking like Sweden. I'm thinking again. Now I'm confusing Switzerland with Sweden. I don't necessarily know that the women in Switzerland are all that great. I know that like the Swedish bikini team is a thing from like the 80s, but that's not Switzerland. All right. Number 8, Melbourne, Australia. Most popular places for expatriates to live. Now this one I totally get. it. California or Melbourne, Australia just seems like a giant California. It's when I think of like, Southern California from like, I don't know, Santa Barbara South. That's like, to me, that's what Australia is. It's so far. And you know what? You know why it's a popular place for expatriates to actually move to? People who used to live in America, places abroad that they're living. Melbourne, Australia. You know why it is? Because nobody visits there. Because it's too long of a trip. If I'm going to spend 24 hours on an airplane to get to Australia, I'm staying in Australia for a year. I'm not going to do another 24-hour plane trip in a week. That's not. I could do Melbourne. I always say that I'm probably never getting to Australia because that plane trip just seems too long. But maybe like in 10, 15 years, we'll have like a way to get to Australia in like 2 hours or maybe like an hour. I don't know how they'll do it. Maybe they'll do it. Then I'll go and I'll be happy. Number 9 on the list of most popular places for expats, Abu Dhabi. Fuck, you crazy. What are you, out of your mind? I'm not going to Dubai. I'm not going to Abu Dhabi. I'm not going to any of these places. Number 10, Singapore. Again, I don't know if like Singapore is necessarily in the same thing as Thailand. The guy that was going to Thailand where you're like, yeah, you're moving to Thailand. Singapore, again, high finance. Like if you're super rich, you could really enjoy living in Singapore, but also super poor. Like Singapore to me seems like there's like a super rich and a super poor. How is that different? I don't know. I guess that's like that everywhere. I don't want to go to Singapore. That language seems like I'd be terrible with that language. Not good. King Charles is trending today, folks. King Charles is trending because somebody threw an egg at him. Yeah, King Charles was out doing what they call a walkabout, where he gets dropped off in the center of like a little town, like a strip mall. It'd be like if the president just showed up at North Park Mall and then just started shaking people's hands. So he did King Charles walkabout, and he was walking through this little like town area, this little city, and people are coming up to him. Somebody threw an egg at him. Yo, Chuck! And just threw an egg. St. Louis Cardinals play-by-play man Dan McLaughlin is trending. Dan McLaughlin, St. Louis Cardinals, both of these things are trending. Dan McLaughlin is trending because, Sunday evening he was arrested for his, ladies and gentlemen, third DUI. That's right, the beloved voice of the St. Louis Cardinals, Dan McLaughlin. I'm Dan McLaughlin along with my broadcast partner, Jim Edmonds. Dan McLaughlin, I'm a Cardinals fan, so I know I watch Cardinals games. I like Dan McLaughlin. I do. And I wasn't making that up. I'm Dan McLaughlin alongside Jim Edmonds. Jim Edmonds is pretty good. I like McLaughlin and Edmonds. Anyway, 3 DUIs, man. I'm telling you, that is a life that we take for granted, right? Let's just say not even necessarily baseball, or baseball is kind of specific because there are so many baseball games. Football is the same though. NBA is the same. The announcers, your local announcers that do the games for, whether it's your Texas Rangers announcers, my Chicago White Sox announcers, the guys who do the local radio play-by-play for the Cowboys, man, these people, let's talk about baseball since we're talking about Dan McLaughlin. These dudes live a lifestyle that you just couldn't comprehend. I mean, you think it sounds like a fun gig. You have no idea what these guys. Yes, is it a fun gig to be paid, I don't know, $1 million a year to see every single baseball game, and then your job is to sit there with hopefully a friend and call the game and describe what's happening? Doesn't that sound fun? Yeah. But you know where it gets crazy? Dude, every single night these dudes are like in a steakhouse, telling stories, getting shit hammered, taking Ubers back to a hotel, waking up hungover, getting to the airport, flying to the next city, arriving in the next city, checking into the hotel, going to a steakhouse, getting drunk, going to their lifestyle is insane. So when this dude, Dan McLaughlin's got 3 DUIs now, yeah. Although I don't understand how anybody high profile can get 3 DUIs. How do you get your 3rd DUI in 2023? If you're Dan McLaughlin, a guy who I know makes a very nice living as voice of the St. Louis Cardinals, you've got 2 DUIs. You know that you're out drinking because you're at another steakhouse. All they do is they go to the best steakhouses. They even have a uniform. Like when you see them out in the wild, the uniform is blue jeans, t-shirt, sport jacket, and gym shoes. They lose the shirt, that they wear usually, but it's always that outfit. It's blue jeans, t-shirt, sport coat, gym shoes. They look, and then, I'm sorry, I forgot. absurdly expensive looking watch. That's the last piece. They always have like some gigantic freaky watch because I don't know, that's it. But all these guys do is drink. They're almost always single. Like a lot of these dudes I know, no, what are you talking about? These people are married. No, you know, are married. The pro athletes. The pro athletes who come into the broadcast booth as color or whatever, yeah, they typically have a wife and all that, but that wife and stuff, they're used to them being on the road and being around. I'm talking about, you know, your 40-year-old local play-by-play. He doesn't have a wife. That dude's on the road 162 games a year, you know, and then it's spring training, and then this dude is always on the road all summer long, from April to October. This dude is in it's not conducive to married life. What it is conducive to is expensive steaks at steakhouses and just drinking constantly. All of these guys are drunks. There, I said it. I'm trying to think. With the exception of Jason Benetti, the voice of my White Sox, because he's got CP, and I don't think he does alcohol. I don't think he does anything. Anyway, 3 DUIs for St. Louis Cardinals broadcaster Dan McLaughlin. I'm Dan McLaughlin alongside my broadcast partner, Jim Edmonds. That's the thing. Planes, trains, and automobiles. We're going to end on this one. Wait, will we end on this one? Let's see here. Should we end on that one? Yeah. All right. We're going to go out on this one. Planes, trains, and automobiles. I just saying planes, trains, and automobiles. You're welcome. When you heard me say that, a little some happy happened, right? When you heard planes, trains, and automobiles, you hadn't thought about it in a while. When you heard planes, trains, and automobiles, you went, oh, I like that movie. Yeah, that's from me to you. I gave you that. Plane, now, ready? I'm about to pull the carpet out from under you. You're going to be pissed. They're remaking planes, trains, and automobiles. All right. But, okay, so first of all, the idea of remaking planes, trains, and automobiles, how do I feel about that? Okay, I love it. I don't think that when I see the remake that I will be comparing it necessarily in a better or worse to the original, because the original for me is untouchable. The original Planes, Trains, and Automobiles with Steve Martin and John Candy is an absolutely perfect film. Love it. Absolutely love it. Any list that I make ever of certainly holiday films, although it doesn't really get, because is it Thanksgiving they're trying to get home for? Because it's not Christmas, so it's not necessary. Anyway, any list of films, like my favorite films of all time, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles always makes the top 10. List of comedy films, it's easily in the top 5. Love it. I just love this film. It's warm fuzzies. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, warm fuzzies. And yes, even though I know it's happening, I still cry every single time Steve Martin, I'm going to spoil it for you, every single time that Steve Martin invites John Candy in at the end of when he realizes that John Candy has no family and he's just going to walk off by himself. And then they show Steve Martin's family, and his wife is a goddamn angel. It's like you see her and you're like, oh my God, he's got an amazing wife. And he's got these kids that are just absolutely perfect. And you start to see Steve Martin's life through the eyes of John Candy. And John Candy realizes that the reason Steve Martin wanted to come home was because he had something to come home to that John Candy didn't. And then John Candy gets invited for dinner. Oh, are you kidding me? Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Whoo! Gotta cry just thinking about it. I mean, seriously, it's just such a great movie. Such a great movie. I could probably make the argument that it's John Hughes' best film. Probably. Okay, so they're going to remake it. Now, who are they going to remake it with? Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. You're going to remake it now? What are you going to do? Okay, Kevin Hart. All right, sure. We'll throw Kevin Hart and Kevin Hart. I'm trying to think of somebody else. Kevin Hart and Robert Downey Jr. All right. I don't know. I'd have to think about that. Robert Downey Jr. in the Steve Martin role. Kevin Hart in the lovable, over the top Dell role played by John Candy. Okay, maybe. That what I'm saying is, if you're going to tell me you're going to remake Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. There are a number of options. There are a bunch of combinations currently in Hollywood that we could talk about that I might be open to considering. Ladies and gentlemen, Planes, Trains, and Automobiles is possibly going to be remade by Drew Barrymore and Adam Sandler. Yeah, that's right. And Drew Barrymore wants to play the John Candy role. So, yeah. So we're going to take a beloved role of Dell from Planes, Trains, and Automobiles as created by John Candy. John Candy, one of the greatest comedic character actors in the history of Hollywood. So we're going to take that role and we're going to give it to Drew Barrymore and see what she can do with it. Are you fucking kidding me? Drew Barrymore? I love her. She's a doll. She's fine. She's wonderful. You're not going to give the John Candy role in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles to Drew Barrymore. Now, on the other side of that, Adam Sandler as the Steve Martin, that's not terrible. That is not terrible. I am not against that. Adam Sandler has proven to me, that gambling movie that he made last year. Look, Adam Sandler's got my respect. Adam Sandler could probably pull it off. He could pull off the straight-laced Steve Martin role in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles if he had to. I believe he could. Open mind on that choice of casting. Drew Barrymore as John Candy. Jeff Ballard. Yeah, The Rock and Kevin Hart. I could see that. Just remake it. I might not love it. Whatever. Maybe Cedric the Entertainer and Kevin Hart. Huh? Yeah, they do that a lot. Yeah. Turn it into a more urban kind of, story. Do that. That's fine. That's not a problem. But yeah, I'm sorry. I'm going to push back on the Drew Barrymore. That is just not happening. There is no way that Drew Barrymore is going to take on the role that John Candy made famous. I'm just not going to allow that to happen. And you know what? I put the onus is on you, the American citizen. You can't allow that to happen either. Make sure of it. All right, we're done. That's it. We're going to be, hey, come back tonight at 9 o'clock. Do you feel like you got a good idea of all the things people are talking about? I hope so. Come back at 9 o'clock tonight. I have got my poetry. Pugs and Parker proudly present Pillow Talk every Monday through Thursday, 9 p.m. right here on the Radio Misfits podcast platform. Tonight, last night I had a whole bunch of stuff that I wanted to talk about because I fell into a crazy Wikipedia hole, and I wanted to take you through it. But instead, Kirstie Alley died, and that kind of changed the whole course of the show. And then it was just me and Parker, and we went, Parker calls it Chasing Rabbits. I call it Stream of Consciousness. But anyway, we had stuff planned for last night. We just threw it all away and just chased a rabbit down a topic hole. Talked about whatever we wanted for an hour. Probably won't do that again tonight because I do have some things I want to talk about. Word of the year. There's a new word of the year. I've never heard it. Let's see here. What's the new word of the year? Okay, so the Oxford Dictionary word of the year is goblin mode. Goblin mode. The fuck? Last week we did the Merriam-Webster's Dictionary word of the year. The Merriam-Webster's word of the year was gaslighting. We talked about that last week. Today, the Oxford Dictionary is putting out their word of the year. And I don't think it's a word at all. Goblin mode. Never, ever heard that phrase used ever. I guess I really am getting old. The word of the year I've never heard before reading this story this morning. All right, bye, everybody. I'm going into goblin mode. See, I don't even know what it means, so I'm just going to start using it. I don't want to know what it means. Don't tell me what it means. I'm just going to use goblin mode where I think it fits. I'm starving. Think I'll make some lunch. Gonna go into goblin mode. That works. That fucking works great. That one worked well. Okay, see you tonight at 9 for Pugs and Parker, right here on the Radio Misfits podcast platform, radiomisfits.com. Down the road I'll travel, far from the
a comfort nest. I am on a never-ending quest.
To answer Tartan Sauce regarding my comments on Drew Barrymore from years ago, yeah, I said that.